What do Arkansas divorce, tornadoes, and meth labs have in common? Somebody's going to lose a trailer.
That's a tip that you can't get anywhere else but here. If you need a fast police presence, you have to say, there's a beautiful naked woman there, and then go on with whatever the issue is.
I recognize that most of the trailer parks in Hot Springs were owned by mom and pop people.
And we're back on the MHP Exchange podcast, coming to you from the mobile home park capital of New York City, which is Staten Island, the home to the only mobile home park in all of New York City. I'm your host, Frank Rizzo. Joining with me is my partner and co-host, Eric Busuttil. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning, Frank.
Good morning, Eric. You're in an extra chippy, excited, good mood.
I am. I've been going to bed quite early.
Really?
Quite early, yep.
Okay. That's with 4 kids.
Friday is the new Monday.
Got it.
Friday
Monday is my favorite day of the week. We have a very special and a little bit of a different program today, and I'm really excited about it, and I'm glad that we're able to bring this to everybody. On this program, for those of you that follow, and I know that you do, we look to bring industry knowledge to people. We look to bring deal makers, community owners. We look to give tips, insight into deals that we've done to the people who are out there listening. Today, we're going to talk to a community owner, but really an OG community owner, somebody who's been in the space for a very, very long time. Prototypically, this would be somebody that we come across maybe looking to leave, right, the industry, or getting ready to move on and transition to something else. But he has done something that you and I have talked about doing for years, because no one would believe the stuff that we come across being in the MHP space. And he has just written a book. I finished it. I laughed. There was some stuff in there that I could absolutely relate to. It was a fantastic read, and I was so glad to be part of it. And it's given me probably a new joke to tell everybody here, right? That everybody who loves my sense of humor. We have Gary Strakshus here.
You have a sense of humor?
I do.
Oh.
I do, Eric.
Okay.
And he's written a book called Somebody's Going to Lose, right? Somebody's going to lose a trailer. I have to say it right.
So one thing I am super excited about today is I don't think we do enough of is actually talking about what's going on the ground in any of our communities. We really don't do that at all.
We touch on it.
We touch on it, but I mean, this whole convo today is going to be predicated on what's actually happening. So for those of you who have been listening and have been trying to understand the mechanics and the financials and the, of these properties that we own, this type of asset class, get ready to really see the other side of it.
The real side.
With this book.
Yes.
Absolutely.
With this book and with Gary, who's been in the space for a long time, and it's got a tremendous amount of stories and wealth of knowledge to share. Gary, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you being part of the program. How are you today?
Way above average, Frank. Thanks for asking.
Thank you, Gary. And thank you for being here. Just so people get a sense of and for people who haven't read the book, give us a little bit about your background, like what brought you to write the book, right? Number one, before we talk about how you got into space, what was the reason why you decided to write this book?
Number one reason actually was on a daily basis, people would ask me how my day was going. And inevitably I would say, great, I love it. I would relate stories to them that happened during that day. And they said to me, you should be writing that stuff down. And for 30 years, I didn't. And I picked it up about 10 years ago. I started writing notes. I ended up with a box full of notes. And I was trying to put them in chronological order. This was all from memory. And it came together quick, put it out there. I saw a TV commercial for publication. It was Page Publishing. I got to give them a little go-to, but I liked them a lot. I talked to a girl there, Nikki was her name. We worked out a deal and got it out there on the market, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. Actually, I enjoy selling one book at a time. I'd love to sell 100 at a time, but one at a time out of the back of my truck in a restaurant or wherever I'm at. Last week I was in Mexico. Uh, a lady pulled up next to me on a cot, and I looked over at her. She pulled out a massive book, and I said to her, I see you don't have anything to read. Would you mind doing me a favor and taking a look at my book? And she said, sure, I'll give it a shot. I handed it to her. She read the title, Somebody's Gonna Lose a Trailer, and her face went white. Her jaw dropped. She says, my family sells mobile homes. It was the perfect setup. Then I went back to my people in my chair, and I watched her. And my wife says, what are you doing? And I said, well, wait for it. I'm waiting for the first smile. And about 5 minutes after she got through my history, she smiled. I said, there it is. And I said, wait a minute. 5 minutes later was the next smile. 5 minutes later, she laughed out loud. And I love that stuff.
So I don't want to give it away. Where does the title come from?
Well, so the joke goes, what do Arkansas divorce, tornadoes, and meth labs have in common? Somebody's going to lose a trailer.
That's
well, I mean, Frank, if you look at the cover, I mean, this guy is in clear violation of just about every park rule that we have. So, I mean, this guy's definitely losing a trailer.
Yeah, he's not compliant. You know, and I have told that joke to a few people after getting the book. So how did you get started, Gary? Because I know most people do not grow up saying, hey, I want to be a mobile home park operator. You know, you had a very interesting kind of segue into the space, almost by coercion and almost by accident. So
exactly, that's a good way to put it. 1977, I had just graduated from George Williams College, just outside of Chicago, in my hometown of Downers Grove, Illinois. Graduated, didn't have anything to do. My dad was fixing to retire within 1 year, and jump back 30 years, my mother and father spent their honeymoon in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and vowed to always return and spend out the rest of their years there. So I volunteered to go to Hot Springs, take a look around, find them an investment, a place to live, and then a little business, something to do on the side. And I ran into a small trailer park on the lake, Lake Hamilton, and it was perfect. I said, I'll do it for a year. You can retire here, live out your life, and have a good time. Well, he got fired almost immediately from his job in Chicago. So he wasn't vested. He wasn't going to get his retirement. It blew the plan. Jump forward. He found another job 10 years later. I had been stuck with this job for 10 years, waiting for him to retire. And I loved it. I fell in love with the place, the people. Hot Springs has everything I ever wanted: mountains, streams, forests. So the mountain biking was there. I play a lot of tennis. I've got tennis courts close by. Plus, I did a lot of on-the-job training in the trailer park in those 10 years. I like to say that I received my doctorate in electric, plumbing, heat and air, carpentry, and I learned several different languages: Yankee, Southern, Hispanic, Ebonics. All these languages come in handy when you're running a mobile home park.
Well, you end up having a bunch of different dynamics that come in there. And I know when you talked about what you learned and how you learned it, you didn't just learn it by going to work. You kind of paid the price. And it's like when people say blood, sweat, and tears, I mean, I think you've paid the price in blood and probably a couple of tears, right? That you wrote about in the book.
So you got a chapter on accidents, illnesses, and injuries which occurred to me within the park area. Yeah, I mean, I was weed eating one day, and the weed eater caught on a cable that was on a pole. I was weeding it on the pole, and the string caught the wire that was stapled to the pole, pulled it out, shot the staples into my leg. They were that long, and I had to pull them out before I could get my pants off to start administering pressure to the wounds.
So
You do a lot of tree trimming too. I got some tree trimming stories if you'd like to hear some.
You want
Climb the
to
ladder.
have him give us a
Climb the
story?
ladder.
yeah. Give us
I
a
mean,
good
Gary,
injury story.
why don't you give us an ideal story of yours, just so people can hear one of the stories that could potentially be in this great book of yours. Why don't you give us one of these quick stories? Because, I mean,
My go-to is Sarah.
okay, let's talk about Sarah.
Sarah is in the book several different times, and she only stayed with me probably 60 days. Problem with Sarah was she loved drugs and alcohol. I started getting calls immediately from my community, people in the park, complaining about Sarah's activities, nighttime activities, basically. She liked to be scantily clad and run around the park breaking things, windows, kicking in doors. I had her arrested the first two times. Had to go to court. Charges were filed. Rehab was suggested, but she wasn't done yet. My sister gives me a call. My sister lives right down the hill from me. Gives me a call between 2 and 4 a.m., which is when most of the tragedies happen. And she said, "There's a naked woman on my porch. Come look." I went immediately running down, turned the corner to my sister's place, ran up the ramp, and there she was, Sarah, naked as a jaybird, kicking the door, trying to get in. She thought she'd been partying there all night long. I immediately dialed 911. I said 911. I got the county sheriff's patrol on a high alert, told them there was a beautiful naked woman running around breaking stuff in my trailer park. The response team was fantastic. I had 3 squad cars there almost immediately by telling them there was a beautiful naked woman running around.
So
unfortunately for them,
so for those listening, hold on. For those listening, that's a tip that you can't get anywhere else but here. If you need a fast police presence, you have to say, "There's a beautiful naked woman there," and then go on with whatever the issue is.
See what happens. Boy,
I had
to hold her a little bit. She was still pretty frisky at that point. So I developed a technique to hold people until the cops get there. I straddled her head with my feet. She had long blonde hair. I was standing on her hair on each side of her head, which immobilized her completely. She couldn't get up or down or anything. She was stuck there until the cops got there. And they were disappointed because I had her wrapped in a beach towel.
Oh, that's amazing.
Which I did. It was returned to me after.
Hey, could you show us? Could you demonstrate how to do that? I mean,
I need a naked blonde woman.
Do you have any naked blondes over there that we could try this on?
But that wasn't the only time, and I don't want to give away everything that's in the book. That wasn't the only time that you used that call. You used it for another reason, right? And if you want to share that story as well.
Yeah, actually, the first time I ran into Sarah's shenanigans, she was running around the park, scantily, all she had was a brassiere and underpants on, breaking the windows of one of my tenants' houses. She saw me coming. She ran down the hill to another location, ran past the people that were sitting on their front porch, jumped in the door, ran to the back door, and was trying to escape the wrath of Gary, I guess. Problem was, my trailer park's on the side of a hill, and the back end of this house is about 10 foot off the ground. She didn't know that. She's trying to get out the back door. It's locked. Finally gets it open, slams it open, and does a Superman out the back door, 10-foot drop to her face. And she laid there until I initiated the Gary Hold'em until I got here.
You did the move?
You did the move.
I did the move, man. So there was another. The last time that I dealt with her, she was.
What do you do if the what's the word for it? What do you do if they have no hair? Like, what do you do in that situation?
Well,
you have another tactic.
I haven't run into that problem yet. I'm a first degree I'm a first degree black belt
All
in
right.
Taekwondo, so I really don't need to use that
All
move.
right. All right.
It's just fun. Uh, anyway, she was running down the middle of the street in a bikini after spending the day at the beach, drunk and stoned, didn't know where she was. Cars are passing each side of her. I get on the phone with the county again, tell them that I've got a girl scantily clad in a bikini. It works.
Every
It works
time.
almost as good as the naked story. I had been to court with her several times, so the judge was very familiar with me. And I was in court on another eviction case, unrelated to her. She had been gone for a while. I stepped up before the judge when he called my name. He says, Mr. Strakshus, I remember you. You're the guy with the naked woman in the trailer park. And I said, Mobile Home Village, Your Honor. You got a kick out of that. It just sounds better.
Yeah. In reading the book, it actually made me think about some of the stories that you just forget because, like you said, you go through your day and some of the stuff you kind of put in the back of your mind, but you forget how shocking it was when it happened. So I was just telling Eric this story the other day, and we've told a couple of stories here, and this was one that we almost forgot about. When we go in to a community and we've purchased them, we give everybody an application. We want to do background searches on them. We want to know who we're dealing with in the communities that's there, right? That's just like standard operating procedure. And this is back when we first started. I think it's our second park together. And it was a bad spot. I mean, we had a drug dealer in the front. We had 5 trap houses in the back. And we had one guy in the back, middle-aged gentleman, a little older than us, driving an F-150, worked at Bluebird, right? We'll call him Bob, right? Just to, like you said, to protect the guilty in your book, right? We're gonna, and
he's been dodging us, but he pays,
and
his house is like
immaculate,
kept immaculate, and he drives a nice truck, and we can never, we don't really look to engage with him. He's paying, everything's in order. And we never see him.
So
we never see him.
The former owner comes up to us, right? Because I think we were asking about him. I mean, we were evicting some people and getting people out, transitioning the community over. And the former owner comes to us and says, "Listen, Bob's a little nervous speaking with you because he has a felony and he's worried that he's worried that you're going to kick him out." I was like, "Well, we don't want any hard drugs. We don't want any violent felons. Like, what did he do?" He says, "Well, he robbed a plane." I was like, "Well, it's not violent. I guess that's okay. I've just never heard of anybody robbing a plane before." He says, "No problem." So we catch him, right? We're in the park. We catch him, and we grab him. I got to say, "Listen, Bob, I'm just talking with you." I say, "Normally people have a felony. We don't want him to have him in the community. Look what we're trying to build. But I got to say, you got the coolest felony I've ever heard about. Like, how do you rob a plane?" And he looks at us. Dead ass.
"Why did you rob a plane?"
I said, "Why did you rob a plane?" He looks at us, dead ass, looks us dead on and goes, "Well, we were smuggling drugs in from South America." I was like, "What?" I was like, that's why you rob a plane. Yes. His parole was up. He went back to North Carolina. He must have had bushels of money buried somewhere. Didn't say a word. Said I was leaving, and he was out.
Gone.
But the helm was immaculate.
You got to be writing that stuff down.
Yeah.
You said how many years were you doing this before you started to write this stuff down?
Close to 30 years.
Yeah, so you giving me a lot of confidence because we're doing this only about 10 years worth of backstories that we missed out on, but we could definitely start writing these down and writing some of those down.
So you hit on this, and just to go back briefly, you did this. Most people can't get their kids to put their dishes in the dishwasher, right? You sit there, you go down to Arkansas from Illinois to find your father's retirement and then run it until he's done, right? So now you're down there and you fall in love with the place, and that's great. But now your father's retired 10 years and you fall in love with what you're doing. Like, so now there's also a pivot point that you talked about, because you could have came back, your father could have came down and said, "Hey, look, I'm taking over, son. This is what transpired from that?"
I knew Dad was coming soon, so I started scouting out locations for another mobile home park. I knew there was plenty of interest because I was getting calls every day for rentals. I had a motorcycle then, and I took a ride out Amity Road, south of Hot Springs, and found this beautiful corner on the corner of Amity and Old Brundage. That's how Brundage Woods got its name. It wasn't for sale at the time, and I had to go to the courthouse to find out who owned the property. And it was owned by a little old man that lived up on top of the hill in a 100-year-old house that had never had any work done to it. I let him know that I was interested in the front 8 acres of his property, and he really wasn't interested in selling. He had been approached by a rubber band factory for that piece of property, and he didn't like that idea at all. And for a couple of years, I would just come and visit him and talk, and sometimes I wouldn't even mention the sale of his property. But finally, he gave in and said he'd be happy to sell me the front 8. I never told him what I was going to do with it. I did say something about how my grandfather would love to move a trailer here and live on this piece. Well, when I started developing 10 spaces, which was the first go around with the park, he was helping me. I told him what was going on. He was saying, well, these should be a little bit further apart and all that. He was very helpful. And I think if he was alive today to see what I did with his property, he'd be very happy.
And you grew that, and now you have what, 2 or 3 communities in that area?
We had two mobile home parks at one time. I actually bought my dad's from him because I found out he wasn't really interested in dealing with people. He wanted to retire and do his little projects.
Got it.
So I did that for a few years, and running back and forth between the properties was quite wearing. The property on the lake should not have been a trailer park as long as it was. Condos had infiltrated the area, and condo people were after me to purchase the place. And it was 25 unit. I finally gave in, told them, yeah, let's do it. They gave me a price that I couldn't believe. I was very happy with that. I moved most of the trailers that were in the park over to my new park. So I filled them up pretty quickly, and then I had to develop some more spaces, fill them up. I would do 5 at a time. I never took out a loan. I'd paid cash for everything, which was very helpful. I don't know if anybody could do that today. And I did most of the groundwork. I had ditches dug. I laid the water, sewer, electric, and my wife helped me. And we were tamping in ditches to get it up to code so the inspector would pass it. And the inspector for the city would come out every day and inspect my work. And he told me that I did better work than most of the licensed plumbers in the area.
And you lived in the community, correct?
Yeah. The first one, yeah, I lived there for 10 years.
Got it.
I never looked back. I never read a book about how to manage a mobile home park. I just thought it was the way to do it. Be on hand, be there, be on top of everything, know the people, get to know them, get them to know you. I actually, being there, I resuscitated 3 different people due to heart attack or whatever. But I'm 0 for 3 in my resuscitation. But at least I was there to try to help. I think it's for me, it was the way to go. I had to be a present landlord, and it's worked.
That brings a great point because you've probably seen a lot of changes happen in the industry since you've first got involved, over 40 years ago, and a lot of new entrants, and we've been in the space for 10 years. And I think there's been different levels, and we've seen in the last 4 years, probably a lot of newer entrants who come in, who've probably visited and I got involved in this space quite by accident, right? And that's how we got involved, quite by accident. We kind of fell into it. We loved it. We became enthusiasts about it. Now it's monopolizes most of our conversations. But I think a lot of people who came in recently, they look at this industry more from a spreadsheet. Oh, the numbers look great. This is an asset class I need to get involved in. And they've gotten involved. But the kind of thing that resonates through the book and through all these funny stories. I mean, you had great stories. great stories about your handyman Todd, which kind of sticks out in my mind a lot too. But the connection you had with the residents and the connection the residents had with that community, that culture that you built up inside that. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that, and that the older woman in that last or towards the end of the book that wanted to move into your village, right? Like how that kind of resonated a lot with me.
When I first got down here, I recognized that most of the trailer parks in Hot Springs were owned by mom and pop people. They were the ones that started it, developed it, and grew it. As the years went on, and like you say, especially in the past 5 or 6 years, maybe 10 years, uh, the money people, the spreadsheet people are after me. I've got a list of over 50 interested companies that are interested in purchasing the property. I don't want that. I would love for it to remain a mom and pop, take it over, much like I did. I don't know if that's going to happen. The money is just too big a draw for all these investors. I could sell right now, or actually I could give it up to a management company and go play tennis every day the rest of my life. But I just turned 70 years old.
You're
I
70?
still love the work.
God bless.
Yeah, you look great for 70.
So I mean, it's for these spreadsheet people, if that's what you're calling them, they just operate. They're going to have to operate it a different way. I know you're saying you can hand it off to a management company. We've tried that. I think in this space, these communities run best when someone like yourself is involved, right? Like there's a sense of togetherness that you give to the people inside of these communities. I mean, even in your stories, I'm sure you care about these people, right, that are in these communities. And I'm sure that a lot of these individuals or residents that you have these stories with, you've tried to help, right? Which, we do. We try to help these people. I know you mentioned before you tried to help somebody go into rehab or whatever the case is. Bigger companies that have no experience in this space, what they need to know is that these communities run best when someone is operating it the way you are. So that's kind of like that's kind of, for somebody fresh investing, one piece of advice I have to give you is that if you're looking at this from a spreadsheet point of view and you want to get involved and own a mobile home park, how are you going to operate it? If you don't plan on doing what you're doing, Gary, and getting, involved and, growing that culture there yourself, how are you going to operate this? It's very difficult.
People seem to enjoy the way we do it. This one-on-one. I get a lot of longtime people. Matter of fact, I just lost a couple who had been with us for 17 years in one of my rentals. I got a call from Pat right down the hill. He says, "Gary, I think Anita's dead," his wife.
Oh.
I went running down there. He was right. She was in the bed, still warm to the touch. But I had to do something. He's standing there watching me. So I got her on the floor and commenced to do CPR. Of course, I'm pretty experienced at this. I've got advanced first aid and emergency care history. I knew she was gone, but I felt like I needed to try for him. And anyway, I lost her. And then he decided to move to family in Arizona. We were sad to see him go. He'd been there for, well, like I say, 17 years. But stuff like that, I like being here for them. And I think they feel safer. It's like a family.
That's a great point, because it is like a family. And you don't find this in any other asset class where the resident feels as vested in that community as the owner, and in some cases with absentee owners, more vested in that community than the owner. And one of the things that we've worked on in our time here is building that culture. And we would when we first started out, is Eric and I doing everything, right? Managing it ourselves from a distance. But we would tell people we're not local, but we're very hands-on. You know, if there's an issue, we want to be made aware of it. We want to be that touch point. Now, as we've grown, we've been able to keep that culture with the people that we've brought on, but you have to be intentional with that. You have to be specific with that and understand that your resident is your customer. Your customer feels very emotionally attached because this is their home, right? If they own their home and they're putting on their land, it's not just, hey, I'm a renter and I'm looking to go, in an apartment, and the moment I could buy a house, I'm walking out the door. They want to be there as long as, and sometimes they'll outlast the owner. And so they have that sense and that feel, and that's so important to maintain as whatever transition you have.
Why do you think people connect with me more than you, Frank?
I don't think they connect with you better. I think they connect with.
No, not happening.
A phenomenon here is I've had a lot of people stay with us for a long time and then move on, buy a house or whatever, which is great. That's the American dream. But I get so many return visits from people, not even visits, return permanent and vowed to stay the rest of their life. I could count probably 20 people that have done that. Left and then returned.
And that's a testament to what you've done and what you've built, right? That's a testament to that and how you're running that mobile home village, right? And
well, the benefit is I never raised their rent as long as they're here. Those people that were here for 17 years never had a rent increase.
Wow.
They were paying 1980s prices.
Wow. Okay.
Well, when they left, I immediately bumped it up like $300 a month. That's what I do that. I only raise the rent when there's a changeover in clientele. I also do a complete remodel of the home when it's empty. I take a 30-day period. I know I'm not going to collect rent during that period, but I'm going to do my best to make it just like new, top to bottom. And it works for me.
I'm glad to hear that. I got probably the most important question now. Who plays you in the movie version?
Brad Pitt.
He didn't even wait for that to finish. He just knew the answer. It's like you're already speaking to him about it.
Isn't it obvious? I mean, I don't look anything like this guy.
Well, so real quick, I'll tell you. And my first story that I'm going to put down is, and what this reminds me of, right? So we had a
rapper back.
Frank knew. Wow. So we had this home in one of the first communities that we're on. It was just a disaster, right? But and there was this home there that was just, I mean, it was just a disaster outside. But we could never catch the guy ever.
But the air conditioner was always on.
Air conditioner was always on.
Always on.
There was no skirting. There was trash everywhere all the time, and finally, he came to the door. So we knock on this door, right? And this is like the 15th time we've been at this guy's door. We always knew he was home or he was around. Truck was in the driveway, little truck, and we knock on the door and we hear somebody. We're like, oh, he's in there. So this giant guy comes to the door.
6'5".
6'5". It was a small trailer. Just
had to be like
we
350.
we hear something wrestling around in there, and he comes to the door and he's
hot
hanging.
Georgia day.
He's hanging on the door, and he's got like these jeans, like overalls on or something. I don't really remember, but I look in the house and literally there was trash and clothes and food. There was only like an alleyway of where you could really walk to the door, and he's just hanging on the door. He's like, like literally, he reminded me of like a wrestler or something, and just hanging on me with no shirt on and
sweating.
And I don't even remember what the conversation was about. I was so like mesmerized about what the house looked like inside. And we talked for like a few minutes, and apparently he just, totaled his car or something, and he gave us some story, and we're like, whatever, okay. And he turned around to go in, and he had like 10 wrappers stuck to his back, like a
Candy
Almond
wrapper.
Joy wrapper, a Reese's peanut butter wrapper, and we were just like, wow, like, let's not mess with this guy. And like, he just went back into this place. And finally, like 6 months later, and we actually
Tried to help him.
had like a decent relationship with him after that. Like, he would call us, I'm in the hospital. He totaled his car this time, next time. Finally, he left. Like, you know, we don't even know where he went. He tried calling us a couple times, and we got into his home, and it was just filled to the ceiling with, there was literally, I don't know, 12 inches to walk around, and it was the most unbelievable thing.
And in that house. Yeah.
But
And thus the name Rapperback. That's how we
yeah,
remember him.
it was just, he was, in my head, he was the mobile home park wrestler. Like I always worried that if I would go to the door, like he would jump out with an elbow at me. I'm like, guy was crazy.
Oh.
But anyway, that's this guy. That
There
is
you
him.
go. I see it. I see it in him. Yeah.
So Gary, like I said, love the book. Ton of great stories, and I'm going to preface this. I know people looking to get into space. There's some books out there that people will tell you about the investment. All that is great knowledge that you can get, but what you need to understand is the customer and the clientele that you're dealing with. You need, if you're interested in the space, you need to read this book and get some insight from a real, experienced, mom and pop owner, and get an understanding of the people that you're dealing with, that you're going to come into contact, and some of the stories that really make this space so unique, so great. And one of those things where if you're in it, you better be in it, right? There's no kind of doing a mobile home park. You are in it. You are in it. Gary, I thought the book was fantastic. I can't wait to read the next one. If they want to get the book, where can you get it?
Available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. If you bug a bookstore enough, they'll get it for you. It's in some libraries now too, but very easy to get. If you catch me on the street in my pickup truck, I give you a friends and family discount. So it's going for $15 out of the back of my truck.
Okay. So if you want to go down to Hot Springs, Arkansas, you get the friends and family discount.
Right. Even if you're from New York.
Even if you're from New York, great. And what we'll do on the mhpexchange.com, we're going to put a link to that so you can find that book. I think it should be required reading if you want to invest in the space. And it's, a lot of great stories. We love the book, Gary. I can't wait to hear your next one. And, we'll talk again. But yeah, fantastic job there.
I've already got a box full of ideas for my next book. So it's going to happen.
Looking forward to it. This, like I said, guys, this has been a little bit of a different episode, but I think so important because, we talk about the business side, but the reason why we love this space is because the space is so fun. It's unique. The stories and the adventures that happen while you're doing business just make this place so great. This is a book that gets it there.
If you want to get a feel for what goes on inside of a mobile home community, and you're thinking about buying one, you should read this book. And this is some of the stuff that you're going to have to deal with, the good and the bad. I mean, this is a great way to see inside what's actually happening on the ground to make those numbers work.
I almost named the book Mobile Home Park Management for Dummies. But
that should be book 2.
That's book 2.
Book 2, Gary.
The next one's going to be more tales from the trailer park.
All right.
Got it.
All right.
Got it.
And they're happening out here right now.
This has been another episode of the MHP Exchange podcast. Check us out at the mhpexchange.com. Share your stories with us. We'd love to share that with everybody else. If you have a question and you want, or that you need to have answered, if you have a story that you'd like to share, catch us on the mhpexchange.com. Hit the link below. Like us, follow us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram. And until next time, this has been Frank Rizzo with the MHP Exchange. Thank you, guys.